So I'll start with Ed's V3.2, talk about it for a little bit because it's the simpler one to explain, just because Ed's V3.1 is really, really complicated because it's completely freeform. So basically, like I already talked about in my how to play Ed, or Beginner's Guide to Ed video, the basic combo structure is anything that you can land into the projectiles. You can cancel into the Enhanced Psycho Snatcher on the ground, and you'll get significantly more corner carry. You'll be able to link your combo from really far away, combo off it with Crouching Medium Punch into the Psycho Upper. Alternatively, you can also reset them, because they are technically still standing after you hit them. And you can, at any point, if you end any combo with the Psycho Upper, or the EX Psycho Upper, if you would do it as a reversal, you can then do the Crouching Enhanced Psycho Snatcher to get a bit more damage and stun and hit them out of the air. And this improves the corner carry more than anything. I would only recommend really doing this against characters who do not have 3-frame normals, because this gives you a better knockdown, but only against characters that don't have 3-frame normals, because Ed does have a 3-frame normal with his light kick, so he'll have the advantage against characters who only have 4-framers. So if Ed combos into the crouching one and then forward dashes 2 times, if the opponent back recovers, he'll be +5, and if the opponent normal recovers, he will be at 0. So he will still be able to contest the opponent with his 3-framer, but if the opponent has the 3-framer, they'll be able to trade. So it's not really worth going for it for that purpose, unless you're just taking the extra damage and not getting the enhanced knockdown. But really, the things you have to look out for, most importantly, during his V-Trigger 2 are how to use this move on block. So, just like his crouching, or his regular B-skill, the Psycho Snatcher, it won't be able to connect to opponents that are airborne. Which means that if your opponent is, say, backdashing or jumping when you do these block strings, like say you're doing any sequence of block strings into the projectile and then into the Psycho Snatcher to keep it plus on block and push them back to get in, that's not a real frame trap, or that's not, there is a gap between them blocking the projectile point blank and the Enhanced Psycho Snatcher, which they will be able to backdash or neutral jump and completely avoid the Psycho Snatcher, which will allow them to get a very big punish. Even if most characters, if they backdash, they'll be airborne during the duration of the Enhanced Psycho Snatcher, and then they'll be +25. And Ed really doesn't have another way to contest them backdashing, most characters. Depends on how good the character's backdash is, but so because of that, so in those situations, Ed doesn't really have a great way to call out the opponent's backdash. Even if after they block the projectile, if he forward dashes, he's only +4. And that's against Ryu's backdash specifically. And that's only at the maximum range back here. If he's actually doing it from like Crouching Fierce range, like point blank, he's only +1 after he forward dashes. He can't really punish it. So his only options for punishing it are making a hard read with the super, and making a hard read with a forward dash, and just taking your +1, but not actually punishing them. I mean, he has other options in other situations to beat backdashes. For example, mainly if you, this will also beat like late techs or things like that, but if you stand jab and then crouch fierce them to catch counter hits, that's one option that's worth going for a lot. And standing medium kick will very reliably beat backdashes. even if Ed has hardly anything else that will beat a lot of characters' backdashes. Like Cammy's backdash will cleanly get out of standing medium punch, standing medium punch. Ryu's won't, but Ed can chase down most backdashes with a standing medium kick. And standing medium kick is plus on block anyways, and he can always create a frame trap with that into like a crouching medium punch or Psycho Flicker. And that's another way he can read backdashes off of, like, say, a standing medium punch. Psycho Flicker has a very fast startup. It's only 6 frames. And it reaches very, very far for having such a fast startup. And when you hit opponents out of the air with it, you get 2 free forward dashes. You can choose to make a true block string with your projectile by spending a bar of meter and throwing the EX projectile instead. And therefore there will be no gap and no way for the opponent to backdash and then escape the situation and punish him if he cancels it into the Psycho Snatcher. You'll just get your pressure for free. Similarly, I need to talk about the situation after he blocks the enhanced Psycho Snatcher. You'll be +2, which means that you can technically check him with, like, say, a standing medium punch or anything like that. That'll beat out 4-framers or anything like that he could have. But in order to actually beat his backdash, you need to go for, if he backdashes in that situation, it'll beat his throw, and you'll only hit him out of the air if you do like a medium punch or something. So your options for beating that are, once again, crouching heavy punch and stand jab into Psycho Spark. Stand jab will catch him before he leaves the air, and then you can immediately cancel the standing jab into Psycho Spark and it'll combo. And then you can hit confirm that and then cancel the Psycho Spark into the enhanced Psycho Snatcher to combo off of it. And if he's still blocking, you can, of course, do the same thing that you would do previously, using a bar of meter to create a true block string and doing that. Next, you can also just throw out the Psycho Snatcher. You can cancel the Psycho Snatcher, the enhanced Psycho Snatcher, off of the rushing Psycho Knuckle from really far away, and that is a true block string. That is legitimate. There's nothing they can do about that except for V reversal. So you can use that to get in. But you can also just throw out the enhanced Psycho Snatcher similarly to how you would throw out the fully charged V-skill in neutral from really far away in order to catch the opponent or pull them closer to you. You can do the same thing, but even better, because the enhanced Psycho Snatcher has farther range and faster startup. But you can make hard reads with against backdashes by canceling normals that enemies or your opponents tend to backdash after blocking. And also, this is not the case for any of Ed's other specials that you can cancel into the Enhanced Psycho Snatcher, but he can also cancel into it on Whiff for the projectile. So what that means is you can throw the projectile out. The projectile does not create a true block string when you do it canceling from point blank, like so. But it does from slightly farther away. So if you throw the projectile and then cancel it into the Psycho Snatcher, it will create a true block string, which will give you your way in. So if you're happening to catch the opponent's normals or anything like that, you can lock them down into being forced to block the projectile follow-up or get hit by it, and use that to cancel into your Psycho Snatcher, which will allow you to get your way in. And if you are making hard reads from really far away, if you're making hard reads as to what the opponent's going to do, you can even cover all option. I wouldn't recommend doing this unless you want to look really, really cool for making a hard read. But you can also cancel it into the anti-air version if you expect that they're going to jump over your projectile when you release it. Now moving on to Ed's Psycho Cannon. So the biggest thing to master, the most important thing to master is using this just in neutral, taking advantage of it, making sure that every time that you force them to block it or anything, that you're forward dashing just like at the right distance. So you want to hang around like back here, right behind the projectile. Sort of here, not just because it will allow you to anti-air if your opponent tries to jump over it, but because it's the optimal range to once they block it, your forward dash will just barely push them in front of it. Whereas if you're right like on top of it when you forward dash, you'll push them really far away, and then you'll have to like keep them in check, or they'll have much more of an opportunity to get away before the projectile catches up to them. Whereas if you're just barely nudging them forward, so making use of this is probably the most difficult thing to master, especially trying to convert it into damage once you actually get the hit. But in terms of setups that you can create once you've actually comboed into the trigger, there are a few different situations where you'll actually be comboing into it. One is when the opponent is already standing during a normal combo, like so. One is when you're converting off of a medium kick and canceling it into the fast version, which has some differences that you have to take into account in terms of setups. And when the opponent's being juggled. That's probably the most reliable setup that you can get, is any combo that you can do into a state where you're already juggling the opponent. It depends on the juggle points available. So if you are doing a combo such as this, where you've already knocked them into the air before doing the Psycho Rising into the follow-up, you'll get different combos than you would if you're just doing the any normal into the Psycho Rising into the follow-up. That's probably the most reliable setup, is that you're going to get off of any regular hit into this, is you're going to spin a bar meter and then immediately do Psycho Rising into the follow-up, do the V-trigger, do a late forward dash, and then do the anti-air V-skill, and then it'll create a hard knockdown in which they're forced to deal with the Psycho Cannon as soon as they wake up. That's one of the most reliable options that you have to go for. That's another reliable option, is after you hit them with the V skill, you can immediately release it and then do 2 quick forward dashes into the crouching V skill, which will set up a meaty orb that'll usually have 1 or 2 hits left. So yeah, that's the best technique. If you anti-air them with, say, that, the best technique in order to reset them, because you won't have enough juggle points if you're hitting them out of the air with the Psycho Rising to get a V skill or even a crouching V skill. I mean, a fully charged crouching V skill. The best option is to go for, you have to release the, V-trigger immediately as soon as you land. And then forward jump twice. And sometimes you'll... Oh my fucking god. And sometimes it will work out. There, and you'll be able to push them out of the full hits, allowing you to get a reset with them with the orb still intact. Most of the time, though, they'll still get hit by the rest of the remaining hits of the orb. Like so, and no amount of forward jumping will be able to break them out of it. But sometimes you'll be able to get a reset. And lastly, the combos that you can get when your opponent is already standing up. You can do all sorts of stuff with dashing forwards, like, so the trick is, you have to learn the timing for this, but the basic trick is, after you do that, into the crouching heavy punch, you wait just a few frames, then you do a forward dash, and then you wait just a few frames longer, and then you do a medium punch. And then you do another forward dash, and then you can do standing light punch or crouching heavy punch, and you'll be able to reset them. You can also do stuff like that, where you can quickly, at certain points in your extended combos, reset them with a light attack or something, and then quickly do a side switch. Like so. That would be like max damage. But that's pretty tricky to do. There's very specific timings. You have to forward dash instantaneously as soon as you release the V trigger, and then do a very specifically delayed medium punch, then delay your next forward dash into immediate crouching hard punch, and if the timing's worked out just right, then you can get the rest of the combo. So that is a legitimate 50-50 that you can get, where if you reset them, so you do a slightly delayed, so you release the V-trigger, then you do a slightly delayed forward dash, then a delayed medium punch, and then you do a forward dash into, you right after they get hit by the next hit of the orb after the medium punch, you do a forward dash that pushes them in front of it and they get launched. Then you reset them with the crouching, you wait a second and then do the crouching heavy punch, and then cancel it into the Psycho Upper, and depending on the range, you'll either stay in front or go behind. It's honestly, you won't even know which side you'll end up on. And then you just hold backwards to the left in that situation, and then if you see that they've gotten hit, you then do another Psycho Upper. You can cancel that into Super. I'm assuming I'll just briefly explain the concept of fuzzy guarding so that I can explain the next ones. There's, as far as I'm aware, it might have changed since I last played Ed, but, I'm not aware of any legitimate fuzzy guard setups that you can get, for comboing off of the V-trigger, but I know some, fake ones that you'll be able to get if the opponent isn't looking for it. So, basically, if your opponent, so all of the, crouching attacks are considered overheads. So if they're crouching, they won't be able to block it crouching. So if I have him guarding all, then he'll automatically stand up to guard the jumping attacks because they're overheads. But you can't do them on the way up. So you only can do them after a full jump. However, there are some attacks that jumping attacks in the game that are capable of hitting the opponent on the way up, but only if they're standing. But there is a way to make it so that they are crouch blocking, which means that they'll get hit by the overhead, but their body is still standing, and that's by forcing them to block something that forces them to stand. So if you force them to block a jumping a heavy attack, and then jump into your fuzzy guard instant overhead, it will be an overhead that they'll have to block standing. So you can after a jump in, you can go low, or you can go overhead for a little bit of damage, but it's only usually worth it for the kill or the stun, but certain characters can use it to combo into other options that they've already set up. Ed is one of those characters. Like so. So if he didn't block that overhead, then he would get comboed off of it with the remaining hits of the Psycho Cannon. And lastly, there's like a few other ambiguous setups you can do. You can reset them with a throw like that, rather than an immediate side switch. You can forward dash into a heavy punch, and then that will set up a range where you'll be if they continue to block afterwards. It'll be really difficult for them to tell which side you're going to end up on. That was in the front. That was in the front. That was in the back. So, yeah. So yeah, it's much better to reset. It's almost always much better to reset your opponents with when you're using the Psycho Cannon rather than just take your raw damage. Because the raw damage is going to be heavily scaled due to the V-trigger cancellation in the combo, so it's almost always better to go for some sort of reset. And yeah, that's pretty much as much as I know about Ed's combos. I'm sure he has tons of other stuff that he can do, like counter hit, crouching hard punch combos with the V trigger, just like tons of crazy stuff that he can get. Like